The best start to your day. It's the AM Show.
Now I'm thinking about bears doing ballet. Time to talk property first, thanks to our sponsors, Property Apprentice. A shortage of building supplies is making life difficult for property developers and builders, and this could have flow-on effects for first home buyers. Joining us now is Property Apprentice founder and CFO, Debbie Roberts. Debbie, good morning.
Good morning.
So tell us about the flow-on effects of this building shortage.
Yeah, there's massive imbalance between supply and demand when it comes to building supplies at the moment. So it's pushing prices up. We're seeing inflation around 4.5%, and those increased costs are getting passed on to the consumer now. So house prices are increasing, completion deadlines are getting extended. So, I think if you're in the market for buying a new home, and just understand that, some of the timeframes might get pushed out a little bit, and it's not the builder's fault. So you just have to work with that to some extent. Yeah. So we were talking to a supplier a few days ago, and they were saying that in some parts of the country, the building supply stocks are so limited that if you order new framework, if you order the building supplies for framework today, you might not get them until March or April next year.
And the interesting thing about this is some builders are having to use other products. So you might agree to something, right? And then a different product ends up being used. What does that mean for consents and things? Do you have to go back and amend?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, when you get a building consent, the councils approve the products that are put into that building consent application. So, if they need to switch some products out, the developers need to go back to council and get that amended. So what we're seeing is that there's some builders that are taking shortcuts and just making the changes because they've got pressure from the people who are wanting to buy the properties, to stick to the completion dates. So they're switching things out, which means that potentially you're going to have an issue when it comes to the council doing the sign-off. They might not issue CCC. And if you don't have a CCC, you're not going to get lending to settle that deal. So there are some significant issues going on there. With the increased costs...
But also, sorry, Debbie, to jump in, but also it's not just the lending, is it? Because all of the tax benefits that you get from a rental property, if you are purchasing to invest, they're contingent on you getting a code of compliance, right?
Yeah. So if you've got enough cash to buy it, because it might not have a CCC, so you won't be able to get lending. If you've got enough cash to buy it, then it's not going to matter what the tax benefits are anyway. But no tax benefits on a new build unless there's a CCC issued for sure. One other thing that I wanted to make sure that people were aware of is that with this increase in cost in the building supplies, which is obviously increasing house prices for new builds too, but there's another flow-on effect. So people need to make sure that they check their house insurance policies. Even if you're already a house owner, check your insurance policy because the cost of rebuild, if something catastrophic happens, you might not have enough cover in place to rebuild your house.
So is this quite counterproductive to what was being encouraged, was people to get into, and investors in particular, to buy new builds and developers to develop new builds? But is this quite counterproductive? Because now it's like, well, probably better off in the long run getting an existing house.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing high prices and rents aren't keeping pace at the same rate. So we're seeing rental returns drop, So for investors, new builds are making less and less sense. So, as much as the government wants to encourage investors to buy new build to get the tax benefits, it still doesn't make sense even with the tax benefits, especially since the losses are ring-fenced as well. So it is a bit of an issue. I think it would have been smarter if the government had actually said, let's encourage investors to buy the grotty old cold damp houses and incentivise them to bring them up to scratch.
Oh no, sorry, Debbie, you're starting to sound sensible. Actually, actually, that's a long way away from Wellington. So just cut that out. Debbie Roberts, who is the Property Apprentice founder and CFO with us this morning.